Beneath a cloudless sky, an unlikely trio of travelers trekked over a sun-baked dirt road, leaving the smoke and smoldering ashes of battle in their dust. Susanna Dickinson rode atop a horse, closely clutching her young daughter Angelina, shielding her from the rays of the searing Texas sun. Susanna Dickinson's husband, Artillery Captain Almarin Dickinson, was one of the Texas settlers who had been killed the day before defending a makeshift fort, an old Spanish mission called the Alamo. Remember the Alamo? Shortly after gaining independence from Spain in 1821, Mexico invited citizens of the United States to settle in a region of Mexico called Texas. It was an effort to gain much-needed revenue for a country trying to pick itself up from the chaos and destruction of the Mexican Revolution. To entice U.S. settlers, Mexico promised cheap land, sometimes free land, in this Texas region. Settlers were asked to learn Spanish, become Catholic Christians, promise not to practice slavery, an institution outlawed in Mexico, and pay taxes to the Mexican government. In as little as 10 years, as many as 30,000 settlers flooded into Texas. At first, the Mexican government was pleased. But few of these settlers bothered to keep any of the promises they had made to the nation of Mexico. Quickly, the U.S. settlers outnumbered Mexicans and Native Americans in the region, and the idea of claiming the Texas region for themselves was increasing in popularity. The Texas Revolution was gaining steam. Mexico refused to be bullied, strong-armed, pushed around, and moved in to stop the rebellious Texans. With the Mexican army poised to show its strength, about 200 so-called Texas defenders took refuge within the limestone walls of the Alamo. Among these Alamo defenders were famous Americans Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett. After a tense 13-day siege, the Mexican army ended the standoff and made their move. In a nighttime assault, somewhere between 1,000 and 4,000 Mexican soldiers scaled the walls of the makeshift fort. The raid lasted a grueling 90 minutes. By daybreak, most of the Alamo's inhabitants lay dead. Most, but not all. Susanna's life had been spared by Army General and Mexican President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. He needed her to carry an important message to the town of Gonzales. It was in Gonzales that the leader of this Texas Revolution, General Sam Houston, had set up camp. The Alamo has fallen. Leave Texas. Your welcome in Mexico has run out. Because Susanna had been wounded in the fighting, Santa Anna supplied her with a horse and a man to guide the young mother in her travels. A man named Ben. Ben served as a cook for General Santa Anna and the Mexican army during those tense 13 days of the Battle of the Alamo. Some years prior, Ben was a free African American who worked as a cook on ships along the east coast of the United States. While visiting New York, the Mexican colonel and loyal aide to Mexican President Santa Anna, named Juan Almonte, met Ben, and apparently impressed with Ben's craft, hired him on the spot. Ben traveled with Colonel Almonte on his return trip to Mexico, and Ben put his culinary skills to use and began a new life in a new land. A little way down the road to Gonzales, mother and daughter Dickinson and Ben were startled by the sudden appearance of a man making his way through the tall Texas prairie grass. That anxious moment was eased as Susanna quickly recognized the man as Joe. Joe, like Susanna, was one of the few from inside the Alamo's walls to actually survive the brutal clash with Mexican soldiers. Joe was the enslaved body servant of the commander of the Alamo, Colonel William Barrett Travis. Surprised to know that another had survived the massacre at the Alamo, Ben and Susanna welcomed the company on the road to Gonzales. The unlikely trio had become a more unlikely quartet. A young widow, her young daughter, a free African American, and an ownerless enslaved man, trudging along a dirt road between two opposing generals.